Welcome to Unexplored Mysteries, the channel where we dive into the darkest corners of the unknown. Today, we bring you a story that will test your courage, the tale of Jack Carter, a man who dared to explore an abandoned prison. What he discovered there was more terrifying than anyone could have imagined. Get ready and remember to keep the lights on as you listen.
It all started one night at home when a friend told me about an abandoned prison on the outskirts of town. Rumor had it that no one dared to visit after dark. Supposedly, several people had tried to explore it, but came back terrified. Or worse, didn't return at all. Intrigued, I decided to dig deeper. Stories claimed that the screams of former prisoners still echoed within those walls, and those brave enough to enter felt a constant presence watching them. Hearing this filled me with both fear and curiosity. Something within me wanted to find out if anything supernatural really inhabited that place. I arrived just as night fell. The prison loomed out of a thick fog, and its decaying structure looked more like a shadow than an actual building. Despite the chills running down my spine at the sight, I took a deep breath and decided to go in. The rusty gate screeched as I pushed it open, echoing like a scream through the air. I shivered, and as I took my first steps, I felt the air grow thick, as if I had stepped into another world. The flashlight in my hand barely illuminated the long corridor. As I moved forward, I noticed that the walls were covered in dark stains, perhaps mold or something else. Shadows seemed to dance along with my flashlight, giving the eerie impression that something was following me, hiding just out of sight. I convinced myself it was just my imagination. Suddenly, I felt a cold breeze that made my skin crawl. I stopped and looked around, but there was nothing there. Still, the silence was so deep that even the sound of my own breathing seemed amplified. Every step echoed, reverberating in an unnatural way. The first cell I came across had its door slightly ajar. I decided to peek inside. The walls were covered in carvings, names, dates, and desperate messages left by former prisoners. The atmosphere was so heavy that it felt like the despair still lingered in the air. While studying the markings on the wall, I heard a sound behind me, like a whisper. I turned quickly, but there was no one there. I reassured myself that it was probably just the wind, though a part of me knew that wasn't true. The air in that place was charged with something else. As I ventured deeper, I started hearing soft, chilling laughter that faded into the air. My pulse quickened, and I began to wonder if I should turn back. Yet, something inside me urged me to confront my fear and press on. Each step seemed to bring me closer to the laughter, which echoed along the walls as if it were coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. Then suddenly, it stopped. I stood still in complete silence, trying to detect any movement. The prison had fallen into an eerie calm. Just as I started to think I was imagining things, a loud bang echoed behind me. I spun around, shining my flashlight down the corridor, but saw nothing. The sound was so loud it seemed impossible that it could have been caused by something invisible. My heart pounded and a cold sweat began to form. I decided to leave that corridor, but as I took a few steps, I felt an icy touch on my arm, like an invisible hand resting on me. Startled, I turned to see who or what had touched me, but the hallway was empty. It was as if something was trying to break my resolve. Then, a murmur sounded in my ear, as clear as if someone was standing right next to me. "Jack," whispered a deep, gravelly voice, saying my name in a tone that seemed to echo in my mind. My blood froze. That voice seemed to know who I was, and it was not there to welcome me. I quickened my pace, feeling that the place was growing darker and more oppressive. I looked around, but the hallways seemed endless. Every cell looked identical, and soon I realized I was getting lost, losing all sense of direction. I tried to stay calm, but the feeling of being watched intensified. The flashlight started flickering, and for a second, I was left in complete darkness. When the light returned, I saw a tall, thin figure standing at the end of the hall. I blinked, and it was gone. Despite the terror, I moved toward where the figure had been, hoping to understand what was happening. But when I got there, the hall was empty, and the silence was so absolute that it felt like the whole world had vanished. I felt utterly alone. As I continued, I heard another bang, this time from a cell to my left. I cautiously approached, and peering in, I saw a shadow moving in the back of the cell. It looked human, but it was wrapped in shadows that seemed to swallow it whole. The shadow turned slowly toward me, and though I couldn't see its eyes, I felt its gaze pierce through me. A chill ran down my spine, and without thinking, I backed away. I closed my eyes for a moment, hoping that when I opened them, the shadow would be gone. When I reopened my eyes, the shadow had indeed vanished, but the fear remained. Every step seemed to take me further from the exit. I tried to remember the way back, but everything looked the same. It felt as if the prison itself was trapping me in its labyrinth. The flashlight flickered again, and this time I saw faces reflected on the walls, tormented faces that seemed to beg for help. I tried to ignore them, telling myself they were only illusions born from my fear, but each face looked more real than the last. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, I spotted the exit door. I ran toward it with all my strength, but just as I was about to reach it, I felt pressure on my back, as if something were trying to pull me inside. I fought with all my might to break free. I felt the weight grow stronger, and I had to use every ounce of strength to resist being dragged back in. With one last effort, I managed to push the door open and step outside. The cold night air hit me, and I collapsed on my knees, gasping for breath, but grateful to be free. I looked back, and in one of the prison windows, a shadow was watching me. It was the same figure I had seen before. I knew it didn't want me to leave, but I was already outside. I got to my feet and started moving away quickly, never looking back. Since that night, I've had nightmares about the prison. In my dreams, I'm trapped there again, and the figure keeps waiting, always in the darkness. I wake up in a cold sweat, feeling as if something is still with me in the room. I'm no longer sure what I experienced, whether it was a hallucination or something real. But I know I'll never go back there. Something evil resides in that prison, and I think I was lucky to escape with my life. Not everyone is as fortunate. In the end, the experience changed me. I feel as if something dark stayed with me, and sometimes, in the quietest nights, I can hear a whisper calling from afar, reminding me I was never welcome there.
What do you think? Would you dare enter a place like this? If you enjoyed Jack's story and want more chilling tales, don't forget to subscribe to Unexplored Mysteries, give this video a thumbs up, and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your own paranormal experiences and know what you'd do in a situation like this. See you in the next mystery.